Oh, hello there. Yes, well, very much midweek, isn't it? It was a busy news day yesterday. Yeah, luckily all of those right-wing pundits who saw the news coming through about Liverpool were absolutely right. Yes, it was a really drugged up white guy that did it. Glad that they got in there quick. Always like to see that. The way that they can frame anything within their own particular levels of bigotry. Bless them. And we had the Nigel Farage special conference where we're all going to get huge tax cuts and everything's going to be lovely because there won't be any more DEI officers. Yeah, that's going to be great. Yeah, each DEI officer in the UK costs us, each of us, 7.5 billion trillion squillion billion pounds. I might not have costed that correctly. Anyway, it sort of goes under the label of what I might start to call, I think, economics woo, just to borrow one of their phrases. I mean, meaningless tosh. It's just the same old thing, isn't it? Yeah, if we can give tax cuts to rich people by just, cutting your services, then trust us, this time it'll work. I know I keep saying that, but so do they. Anyway, on to the meat of the matter today, because talking of me not knowing anything about anything, there was a brilliant piece in the Telegraph from Lucy Burton, the employment editor. She used to be the banking editor, which sort of tells you the direction of travel. Yeah, nothing says knowledge about employment like somebody in finance. They really know what they're doing. Just look at the Reform Party. God, yes. Anyway, it was about schools, so I thought we'd dive into that and see just how much of the entire mess that is the UK is my fault. Answer, lots. Yeah, so here's Lucy. British schools are teaching young boys to aim low. Bear that in mind, because that's the headline here, okay? And see if you can spot exactly where it is that boys are being taught that. But anyway, behaviour of young men is a defining issue of our time. Solving it starts in the classroom, yes, because obviously it needs me to be solving these problems of society. I'm all powerful, what with my vicious and anti-democratic union behind me, compared to the, total might of the world economic order under capitalism. I think I know who's going to win that one, eh? Anyway, diving into the article, after a sort of various preambles about the way that certain teachers are just a bit rubbish and a bit, limp-wristed, if I can put it that particular way, we get to this. The problems are clear, yet the issue still persists. Generation after generation, British schools are teaching young boys to aim low. Boys' behaviour and influences are now a defining issue of our time. Bridget Phillipson, the Education Secretary, said in a speech last month. Her words echo similar sentiment from Sir Gareth Southgate, who used to encourage his players to discuss their emotions during his time as the England manager. Yes, which I thought was brilliant because it's about boys and boys like football, so we get a footballing thing in there. I mean, apropos of absolutely nothing. Yes, the defining issue of our time. I really don't think it is. The thing about this article, which I will undoubtedly come back to, is the fact that it ignores anything that I've read as a sociology teacher about boys in schools that's been written in the last 40 years, I'm afraid. Still, what's evidence and research when, you've got the occasional right-wing think tank to lean on? Eh, Lucy? Anyway, moving on, the absence of male role models in the classroom is an urgent issue. The proportion of secondary school teachers who are male is now at its lowest proportion since records began. Oh, well, I wonder when records began. Presumably a few years ago. Anyway, as the Education Secretary has pointed out, just 1 in 4 teachers in the UK are men and only 1 in 7 at nursery and primary school level. In her speech, Miss Phillipson highlighted that while the number of teachers in the country has increased by 28,000 since 2010, it really hasn't. But anyway, just 533 are male. That's a big problem, given there is evidence that pupils have a higher learning outcomes when they have a teacher like me in the classroom. Yes, just before we get on to the next bit. Now, I do love this from the Daily Telegraph because this is a real kind of cake and eat it thing. They are forever telling us that certain groups of pupils don't need role models in the classroom. No point in having black teachers for black kids to look up to, or indeed materials for black kids to, look through. That would be silly, wouldn't it? Even though there is apparently evidence that pupils have a higher learning outcomes when they have stuff like me in the classroom. leave that one hanging, but I just felt it was worthwhile just mentioning that. The fix won't just be filling classrooms with more men, but making sure that those men show an active interest in inspiring those who might otherwise be left behind. The maths teacher I spoke to says one idea could be to actively involve more boys in some of the things they've shoved down into primary school, in play to some extent, and socialising in a way which is not purely competitive and active based. Yes, which sort of comes back to that whole thing about not particularly being that masculine, I think, doesn't it? Now, I work with loads and loads of young males, young autistic males, who do tend to have a sort of heightened sense of their own masculinity. You do get very much in autistic males a kind of hyper masculinity, so I'm quite used to these things. Now, if you're going to argue that I should somehow learn more about football to be able to talk to them, or find out more, because I really don't want to, about Andrew Tate, I do know quite enough and I do talk to them about those things, or just generally be more hard. Maybe I should come in talking about some bloke I beat up in the bar. I don't really know what any of that stuff means. The role model that I present to young people is just being a reasonable human being, be they male or female. Most of those boys with that kind of hypermasculinity that I said don't have any problems with me at all. Certainly don't have any problems with me or my sexuality or anything else. Some of them are a bit unsure and think that I'm gay when they first meet me. That's their problem. I soon disabuse them of that particular thing. But I don't really know realistically what I'm supposed to do vis-a-vis being more male, other than presumably in a stereotypical way that will make Lucy happy. Still no evidence of kids being taught to aim low, you notice, though. Let's move on. But where are the male teachers? Experts have blamed the decline on men in the staff room on a perception that teaching is a low-status job with low earning potential. I've certainly spoken to men who admit that they are tempted to sack off, I don't know what that means, teaching for a better paid life with shorter hours. And as men abandon the profession, boys are left searching for someone to look up to. Right, okay then. I deeply resent the concept of a newspaper like the Daily Telegraph, which has spent the last at least 20 years slagging people like me off because I don't work in the right sector, and I don't work in finance, and I'm not important enough a person, even though I probably, in the work that I've done, have saved the Exchequer a vast amount of money by kids not going into care. But let's not worry about that, Yeah. Why is teaching not valued? Why is teaching seen as female? Well, there are a number of reasons for this. It's not valued because, of course, under neoliberalism, nothing the government does is valued. So no teachers are valued, even the private sector ones, because then they're just people that can work for the lowest possible amount, because the profit motive must be there. And we also have that wider economic thing, don't we? This is an economic issue. There aren't masculine jobs anymore. Think about it. What jobs are blokey jobs in terms of, once you remove the kind of building site stuff and maybe motor mechanics, you're not really left with a lot. If you want a job and you're a young-ish bloke, let's say you're 17 or 18, you can be a Deliveroo driver, can't you? Or you can work in retail, yeah? These aren't jobs that require any form of masculine trait. So that's the economy, isn't it? It's not me teaching kids anything whatsoever. Again, we still don't have evidence of aiming low here. Let's move on. There's no doubt that the UK's current epidemic of youth unemployment starts in the classroom, she says. Well, I really do think there is, but anyway, a report by Charity Impetus showed last week that young people from underprivileged backgrounds are 66% more likely not to be in education, employment or training, that's NEETs, than average. The issues have grown far worse since COVID crisis, with the number of 16 to 24-year-old males NEETs up 40% since COVID, compared to just 7% among women. And this is where I'll come back to that whole thing about sociological research. There is something called the bedroom culture, all right? You can look this up, and I don't know if you can dare to put the words sociology and bedroom culture into a search engine. You'll find that one of the reasons why it's thought by sociologists, what do they know, that females do better than blokes academically is because they are basically trained at a younger age to be more social. Not that they are somehow, shunting blokes or anything else to one side. It's just that what tends to happen is if girls are going to do get together of an evening. They might well sit in each of their bedrooms, just doing homework together and chatting. It's kind of a nice thing to do. It's the sort of thing that if I was 18 or again, I would probably quite enjoy doing as well. But I guess that's just not being masculine enough. Meanwhile, of course, what blokes are doing is they're killing each other on GTA 25 on the Xbox. That's the issue, if you like. It isn't about teachers training or aiming them anywhere whatsoever. That's what we now have, because those products in a capitalist society are shunted that way. There are far fewer products that can be shunted that way towards females. They tend to do better academically, because they always basically have done. Look back over the British sociological research for the last 40 years, if not more, let's say 50. You can go back to the 60s to a certain extent with this, right? And it's all about the way that there is very much a laddish culture amongst working class boys. You might think of Paul Willis's The Lads, for example. Yeah, again, truth, reality and actual research. And these tend to show that amongst working class blokes in particular, there is an anti-school vibe to them. And that's because, for example, there is very, very much a kind of culture that says that school isn't worth it. The kind of culture that people at the Daily Telegraph will actually buy into. How many times do you see articles in there or the Mail or somewhere else telling you that it's a bit of a waste of time getting a degree or going to university? Except, of course, it really is these days, because work for young people is insecure, low paid, and why should they bother? And again, if you're a young male and you're seeking some form of affirmation, a la, Andrew Tate and his Bugattis, then the one way that you can do that, again, is investing in that notion of hypermasculinity, whereby you are the tough guy. This is why so many young people are stabbed. But that's just me, knowing things and working on the actual stuff that's out there, compared to Lucy, the employment editor, who's just written this, and it's just guff. But that's just me being rude, I suppose. Yeah. Our education system, and with it the culture of low expectations for male students, is in need of a shake-up. As British men give up on work faster than anywhere else in the richest part of the world, the seeds being shown at school must not be ignored. Oh, okay then. I'll just sort that out, shall I? I'll just sort out the damage of 40 years of neoliberalism by being slightly more gruff and, shut down in my lessons, shall I? Is that going to work? No. Anyway, if you fancy a laugh, you can have a look at the comments under this, because they're all full of the usual throttling 60-year-olds, a bit like me, complaining bitterly about the wokists, deliberately telling the kids things. But again, if you can, I've not read all of this article to you, but if you can find anything in there that actually suggests that I'm suggesting to any males, or indeed any teachers are suggesting to any males, that they aim low, you're welcome to it. It's not what happens, all right? We live in a world where being big and tough and strong is not a job qualification, or at least outside of boxing and maybe scaffolding. That's it, okay? That's it. Sorry, but that's the economy, stupid, isn't it? It's not me. And anyway, I am a male teacher in a very female-dominated profession. And finally, the profession, if you like, profession such as it is, has become female-dominated because it used to simply be run by men. Now, you can argue that it was better when it was being run by men. There's no evidence for that whatsoever. But, there was very much a glass ceiling, particularly in primary schools. Primary schools used to have female staff and male head teachers. It's no longer the case. Almost all of my bosses these days, in the last 10 years or so, have been females. That's fine, I don't have a problem with that, because, hey, I live in the century of the fruit bat. Anyway, do have a glorious midweeky thing. Stay dry. I'm going to try and put some more very expensive ointment on my cat. Hooray. Enjoy. As if I live that long, I suppose. Enjoy.